When the water finally stopped, everything I believed about nature had changed forever. That morning started like normal patrol through the Congo Basin Reserve. But what I witnessed in those rain-soaked moments would teach me that the line between species is far thinner than we ever imagine, because sometimes the most powerful trust comes from the most unexpected places. But let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment when the sky opened up and everything went wrong. The rain came without warning. One moment, the canopy above rustled with the usual sounds of the jungle. The next, the heavens unleashed a torrent so fierce it turned the forest floor into a rushing river within minutes. Ranger Marcus had been patrolling the lower ridge trail when the storm hit, and he knew immediately this was no ordinary downpour. The radio crackled warnings about flash flooding in the valley, but out here, surrounded by ancient trees and steep slopes, the danger was already real. Through the wall of rain, Marcus spotted movement on the hillside ahead. A family of gorillas, 3 dark shapes struggling against the mudslide that had turned their path into a treacherous slope. The massive silverback led the way, his powerful arms gripping exposed roots as he tested each foothold. Behind him, the mother followed carefully, her baby clinging desperately to her back, tiny fingers buried deep in her wet fur. The stream they were trying to cross had transformed. What was usually a gentle trickle was now a brown, churning torrent, swollen with debris from higher ground. Marcus watched as the silverback reached the edge, hesitating as he calculated the risk. The mother waited behind him, hunched protectively over her baby. Then, everything happened at once. A wall of water, a flash flood racing down from the upper slopes, slammed into the crossing point. The surge hit the mother gorilla broadside, catching her mid-step. Her powerful grip on the rocks failed. In that split second of imbalance, her carefully maintained hold on her baby broke. The tiny gorilla tumbled from her back, and the raging water swallowed him whole. The mother's scream tore through the storm, a sound of pure anguish that made Marcus's blood run cold. It was primal, desperate, and heartbreakingly human in its raw emotion. The silverback didn't hesitate. With a roar that shook the trees, he launched himself into the violent current. His massive frame disappeared beneath the churning brown water, only to surface seconds later, fighting against the relentless pull. Debris slammed into him, branches and mud, but he pushed forward with single-minded determination. This was not instinct. This was love, raw and fierce, driving him against impossible odds. Marcus started running, crashing through the undergrowth toward the flooded clearing below, where he knew the current would carry them. His heart pounded as he navigated the slippery terrain, branches whipping across his face. By the time he reached the lower clearing, the silverback had already made it to shore, but the silence that followed was devastating. The father gorilla collapsed on a small patch of grass, his massive chest heaving with exhaustion. In his arms lay the baby gorilla, completely still, covered in mud and water. The mother rushed forward, her movements frantic and unsteady. She gathered the tiny body into her arms, cradling it close, rocking back and forth in a motion so human it was unbearable to witness. The silverback pulled himself up and slammed his fists into the muddy ground. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact echoed like thunder, a sound of absolute defeat. All his strength, all his dominance meant nothing against this tiny, silent tragedy. Marcus stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, rain pouring down his face. He had seen nature's cruelty before, but this was different. This was a family, torn apart by circumstances beyond their control. The mother's quiet whimpers, the father's rage at his own helplessness. It transcended species. This was grief in its purest form. Research has shown that mother gorillas will carry their deceased infants for days, sometimes weeks, unable to accept the loss. It's a testament to the depth of their emotional bonds, Proof that love and attachment aren't uniquely human traits. Watching this mother clutch her baby, Marcus understood that scientific fact in a way no textbook could ever teach. What do you think is the strongest bond in the animal kingdom? Share your thoughts in the comments. Marcus knew approaching was dangerous, possibly fatal. A grieving silverback was unpredictable, and he was well within the gorilla's territory. But as he stood there soaking wet in his khaki ranger uniform, he didn't see a wild animal. He saw a father drowning in sorrow, and a question burned in his mind. Could he help? Would they even let him try? The decision made itself. Marcus took a slow, careful step forward, then another. The silverback's head snapped up instantly, his eyes locking onto the human intruder. A low, guttural rumble emanated from his chest, a clear warning that vibrated through the air. Do not come closer. Marcus stopped immediately, his heart racing, but he didn't retreat. Slowly, with deliberate care, he raised both hands, palms open and empty, in the universal gesture of peace. He knew the gorilla couldn't understand his words, but he spoke anyway, his voice low and gentle, hoping the tone would convey what language could not. Then Marcus did something that went against every survival instinct. He lowered himself to his knees in the mud, bowing his head slightly in a gesture of complete submission and respect. He made himself vulnerable, showing that he meant no threat, that he was asking for permission to enter this sacred space of grief. The silverback watched, his massive chest still heaving, muscles tensed and ready. The mother gorilla looked from her baby to Marcus, then back again. Her whimpering had stopped, replaced by an agonizing silence as she processed this unprecedented situation. Time seemed to stretch. Rain continued to fall, softer now, as if the storm itself was holding its breath. Marcus remained kneeling, his eyes fixed on the baby gorilla, his intentions clear. Then, in a moment that would replay in Marcus's mind for the rest of his life, the mother gorilla gently lifted her baby and placed the tiny body on the ground between herself and the human. Her eyes met Marcus's, and in them he saw desperate hope mixed with devastating fear. The silverback shifted his position, moving closer to both his mate and the stranger. He sat heavily, his powerful presence dominating the space. But the aggressive rumbling had stopped. He was allowing this, giving permission through sheer need. If this moment has you on the edge of your seat, stay with us. What happens next will leave you speechless. Marcus moved forward on his knees, closing the distance with careful, measured movements. His hands trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of what he was about to attempt. He placed 2 fingers on the baby gorilla's tiny chest, feeling for any sign of life. The fur was slick with water and mud, the small body frighteningly still. Behind him, Marcus could hear the silverback's heavy breathing, could feel the weight of those eyes watching his every move. One wrong action, one moment of perceived threat, and those powerful arms could end him in seconds. But fear took a back seat to determination. Marcus began chest compressions, his training kicking in even as his mind raced. He had to be careful. The baby's rib cage was so fragile, so small compared to a human infant. He counted mentally, keeping the rhythm steady, pressing down gently but firmly on the little chest. After the first set of compressions, he tilted the baby's head back carefully, clearing the airway as best he could. Then, leaning down, he sealed his mouth over the tiny muzzle and breathed out, watching for the chest to rise. Nothing. He continued. Compression. Compression. Breathe. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but water still ran down Marcus's face, mixing with sweat despite the cool air. His back ached from the awkward position, his arms burned with fatigue, but he didn't stop. The mother gorilla leaned closer, her soft whimpering returning. Marcus could feel her warm breath on his shoulder as she watched. her presence both encouraging and heartbreaking. The silverback remained still, that low rumbling now transformed into something else, a continuous sound that felt almost like a prayer. Marcus pushed down again, breathed again. His mind started calculating odds, thinking about how long the baby had been without oxygen, about water in the lungs, about the cold. The rational part of his brain said it was too late, that he was going through motions that wouldn't change the outcome. But he kept going, because hope isn't always rational, because this family deserved every possible chance, because sometimes miracles happen in the places we least expect them. His arms shook with exhaustion. The world had narrowed to just this, just the rhythm of compression and breath, the desperate race against time that had probably already run out. One more set of compressions, one more breath. The next second will change everything. Don't look away. Then Marcus pressed down one final time, tilted the head, and breathed one last desperate breath into those tiny lungs. And the baby gorilla coughed. It was small, weak, barely there, but it was real. A sputtering, violent cough that brought up water and mud. The tiny chest convulsed, and then, impossibly, miraculously, the baby gasped. The mother gorilla's reaction was instantaneous. A high-pitched cry exploded from her, a sound of such pure relief and joy that it seemed to chase away the last of the storm clouds. She reached for her baby, pulling the small body close as it gasped again, coughing up more water, tiny limbs beginning to twitch and move. The silverback rose to his full height, and for a terrifying moment, Marcus thought his luck had run out. But the massive gorilla wasn't focused on him. Instead, the silverback lifted his face to the sky, where the first rays of sunlight were beginning to break through the clouds, and let out a roar that shook the very ground beneath them. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't rage. It was triumph. Pure, unfiltered victory over death itself. The sound echoed across the jungle, a declaration that life had won, that hope had not been misplaced, that love was stronger than nature's cruelty. Marcus sat back on his heels, utterly spent, his whole body shaking with relief and exhaustion. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving everything dripping and clean. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in golden shafts, illuminating the clearing like a stage. The baby gorilla was breathing, weak but steady, its little eyes opened, unfocused but alive. The mother cradled her child, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the rainwater that covered them all. And then the silverback did something that Marcus would never forget. The massive gorilla approached slowly, each step deliberate and calm. Marcus's muscles tensed, but he didn't move, didn't. The silverback stopped directly in front of him, close enough that Marcus could see every detail of his face, the intelligence in those deep brown eyes, the sheer power in that frame. The gorilla didn't attack. He didn't threaten. Instead, he lowered his massive head in a gesture so clear, so unmistakable that no translation was needed. It was respect. It was acknowledgement. It was gratitude. For a long moment, man and gorilla existed in perfect understanding. Two fathers, two protectors, connected by the universal language of love and the shared victory over loss. Then the silverback straightened, turned to his family, and gently ushered them toward the forest. The mother, still cradling her recovering baby, looked back once at Marcus, and in her eyes was something he would carry forever. Trust, respect, connection. The family disappeared into the green shadows of the jungle, leaving Marcus alone in the clearing. He was covered in mud, exhausted beyond measure, soaking wet, but filled with an overwhelming sense of purpose. He had witnessed something profound, participated in something that transcended the boundaries between species. This was the undeniable truth. That love, the fierce determination to protect those we care about, the willingness to trust even in desperate circumstances. These aren't human traits. They're universal. The silverback's choice to show gratitude instead of aggression, to recognize the help given rather than seeing only threat, that was the ultimate proof. We are all connected by the same fundamental drive, the fight for life, the bond of family, the capacity for trust and compassion. Marcus stood slowly, his legs unsteady, and looked toward where the gorilla family had vanished. Somewhere in that jungle, a baby gorilla was alive because hope had been stronger than despair, because trust had been stronger than fear, because love had been the most powerful force of all. This is what it means to be alive, to witness these moments, to be part of them, to remember that in a world that can feel divided and harsh, we are all fighting the same fight, connected by bonds that run deeper than species, deeper than words. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that compassion and connection are possible even in the most unexpected circumstances, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to hear more incredible true stories of rescue and hope, and share this message with someone who needs a reminder today that love is the most powerful force in nature. We'll see you in the next remarkable rescue. This story is more than just about survival. It's about the unbreakable bond between humans and animals, and how sometimes they don't just share our lives, they save them.